All right, ladies and gents, welcome back to another episode of In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today we have episode 129, and let's talk about an interesting weekend of fights we had. Nick Ball getting stopped in the final round against Brandon Figueroa. KnuckleMania, which was a huge success. Mario Bautista's surprisingly dominant win at UFC Apex 113, and of course Usman Nurmagomedov remaining undefeated and the best fighter in the PFL. Before we talk about that, let's talk about some news. Two big pieces of news related to boxing, both brought to us by Mike Coppinger on Inside the Ring. The first of which, Errol Spence is not, he's reporting it as he will be making his comeback this summer in a fight with Tim Tszyu. And this is a rumor that we had heard that No Limit was trying to set up a fight with Tim Tszyu and Errol Spence. It seems like the plan is not to do that fight in Australia, but rather to do it in America. He didn't say specifically where it would take place. I would have to think that's an American fight. And he also did confirm that Tim Tszyu was planning to have a tune-up fight in Australia. Before then, we did know this, and I think we all know it's going to be on the same card as Liam Paro versus Lewis Crocker. I think the idea is to have that as the main event. It's a world title fight. Have Tim Tszyu fight somebody in the co-main event. I believe another American, nowhere near the level of skill or stature as Errol Spence, but another opponent. And then I think Sam Goodman would probably be on that card as well. And then this summer, Spence and Tszyu would fight. And on one hand, I'll say this. The matchmaking, I think, here is solid. Tim Tszyu was the guy at 154, and then he just kept on losing, and it's just been so weird. So he's definitely still on his comeback trail. I don't want to see him get in with somebody in the top 10. You want to see Errol Spence come back in with a tough fight and a big fight, and Tim Tszyu is still that. He is still a top 15 guy in the weight division, and he's still looking to prove his name. And the winner of this, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they get a title shot off the back of a win here. I don't think that they would have earned one, but you can't really argue with it because it's going to be a big pay-per-view fight. The only thing here is just like, dude, Errol Spence has not fought since the summer of 2023. And we've heard about him coming back so much. He was so close to fighting Sebastian Fundora in 2024 and in 2025, and it just didn't happen. I have to think that, I don't know. I have to be very cautious going into this. I will believe it when the fight is actually announced and being promoted, because just so much can happen between now and then. I mean, take the fact that Tim Tszyu is going to take a tune-up fight. When has that ever gone to plan? Not saying that he's going to lose, but just because I feel like fighters all the time take tune-ups and then they plan to change. Literally with Tim Tszyu last year, he and Keith Thurman both had tune-up fights to fight each other in the summer, and then Tim Tszyu decided to go and rematch Sebastian Fundora instead and got stopped. And now Thurman is going to fight Fundora. So it never makes sense. It never goes to plan. Not even just if they lose. It's just, I don't know. It's really hard for me to put confidence into Errol Spence actually returning. I did not think at all he was going to retire after the Crawford fight. And then now looking back on it, it's been almost 3 years since then. And he is finally going to make a comeback, it seems. But, again, I'll believe it when I see it. The other thing that Mike Coppinger said on the show is that apparently a deal is very close and could be finalized this week for a fight between Jerome Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz Jr., as it is targeted for April in Las Vegas. And he says there's a lot of optimism on both sides. And I feel like they've been trying to stay optimistic, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. At least Eddie Hearn and Matchroom side, they've been very optimistic. I think DAZN has been kind of optimistic. Oscar's been optimistic, but it's just the manager from Vergil wasn't until this week. He posted saying never give up with a picture of their face off. So that was, give me a lot of, maybe there is something. And now we're hearing Coppinger say, look, it could get finalized this week. A lot of optimism, and it's going to happen April in Vegas. I was really giving up hope that this fight was going to be next, and I was very upset about it. So to hear that it looks like it's kind of back on and that they may be able to get it done next is fantastic. I heard rumors of Boots potentially fighting in Atlanta, and I would have loved that. But, if this is the fight that needs to happen for the division, it is the best fight in the division. There's not even a title on the line. But I really hope they can get it done. I really, really hope. And if so, we may be ending this week with an official announcement for Vergil versus Boots, and that would be incredible. It would make this week. But yeah, we're just gonna have to see. Hopefully, nothing goes wrong between now and the rest of the week, and a deal does get made. But man, that is just one of the best fights in the sport, and it's good to hear that it's Optimism is back on about the fight being made. All right, let's talk about this weekend. And since we're talking about boxing, let's just start with the Nick Ball, Brandon Figueroa. My goodness. First of all, great fight. Really good fight, competitive. I'm maybe in the minority in thinking that Ball was actually up heading into the last round. There was a lot of close rounds, and it's really just what you like. Ball, I feel like, was having the more noticeable, bigger shots, but Figueroa, I think, was landing more overall. Mostly body work, which just isn't as flashy or noticeable as Nick Ball snapping his head back. It was weird. It was a really weird style matchup where at first I thought that it was very helpful to Nick Ball, and then as the rounds went on, it definitely became, Brandon Figueroa's size. He was able to figure out his game plan and use it better. Where early on, it felt like it was hard for him to reach Nick Ball, and it was just kind of awkward. But he gauged his distance better. And you really cannot count out Brandon Figueroa. And, dude, I mean, that knockout, look, he was leading on the cards. So it's not like he needed the knockout, but still in your head, you never know. This is a close fight. And for him to go out there and actually get a knockout when it's a close fight, you always hear people say, oh, he needs a knockout. He actually did it. And he knocks him out in the 12th round, a guy who's never been really hurt before, undefeated fighter. He hasn't faced down. And Nick Ball gets up. I mean, the guy's got balls of steel, and then just gets stopped right after. And look, Brandon Figueroa should be allowed to celebrate winning a world title, on away soil by stopping the undefeated champion in the 12th round. And they stop him, and then Andrew Kane comes into the corner and kicks him. I mean, just ridiculous. And, of course, the British Boxing Board of Control is going to do nothing against them in the same way that before the fight, Manny Robles is saying how Nick Ball's team wrapped their hands before a member of Team Figueroa was allowed to supervise that as is, traditional in boxing. Just really, really poor performance from Team Ball. And the British board likes to choose favorites and they like to support their fighters, and it's just crazy to me that they haven't faced any penalties, nothing about it. Because look, if this was an American fighter getting stopped in the 12th round, they are not throwing Nick Ball into the corner to celebrate. They are not kicking him. They are not allowing him to wrap his hands without a member of the UK fighters team there. So it's just crazy. I mean, even go back to one of Nick Ball's last fights where he kicked TJ Doheny in between rounds. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But look, hey, none of this hate goes towards Nick Ball. He fought a good fight. He just got outmanned and caught clean, and it sucks for him. And I would not hate if they visited a rematch. I don't think that they will do that, as I don't think that Queensberry wanted to take this fight in the first place. They knew it was a tough fight going in. I picked Nick Ball, and Brandon Figueroa upset the odds. I don't think that they do a rematch, although I wouldn't hate it. I hope that Figueroa would be down for unification, since featherweight really needs to unify. Turkey tweeted after the fight and said, look, I want to have Figueroa on our Mexico versus the World card, September 12th, the return of Canelo. And then everyone starts mentioning, what about him and Shushu Carrington, who just won his title with a brilliant knockout. Shushu is a ring ambassador. He says he wants all the big fights and to unify. That is a great fight. Carrington and Figueroa is fantastic, as is Figueroa versus Rafael Espinoza, two big guys in the division, both power punchers. The amount of punches thrown in that fight would be terrific. And Angelo Leo is there as well. He's also a big hitter. We just need to see more unifications at featherweight. It's a really, really good division. I do feel for Nick Ball, but, the game's the game. And he came up short. So the undercard, Andrew Kane did have a great win on the undercard. It was interesting where competitive fight, and then in the 8th round, I believe it was, he gets dropped twice with body shots, and it's like, dude, he's done. Like, he was barely standing up, gets saved by the bell, and then Yair Gonzalez comes out and is like, dude, he is about to stop Andrew Kane. We don't know what happened. Kane just got hit, and the wind got completely taken out of him. And what I do like about Kane here is they're like, all right, dude, you got to go for it because you're hurt. You don't have much left, and he's going to come out swinging. And so Kane does that. He puts the pressure on him. He turns around and he stops Yair Gonzalez with two big knockdowns of his own, this time to the head. I thought that the stoppage was a bit early. He counted him out while Gonzalez was still up. However, Gonzalez goes back in there. He gets knocked out, so the ref is still saving him for another day. But yeah, honestly, what a terrific win for Kane to be down and really in a bad spot, thinking this fight is over, and then he comes out and knocks the guy out in the very next round. Very impressive. Just hate that he ended out ending the night with kicking Team Figueroa, which was ridiculous. Look, that was a WBC eliminator. I don't know if he gets Takuma Inoue next. I kind of doubt it. I don't know if he'd want to. I don't think that's a good idea. So we'll see what happens there. Jack Turner had another stoppage win on the card. I thought he looked good. I thought he looked a lot more composed and not as much as guns a-blazing and trying to get the finish. He still got it after just 3 rounds, but much more calm and measured approach. Hassan Ishaq got another stoppage win. I think he's now 3-0 with 3 knockouts. Brad Strand had a third-round stoppage as well. A lot of stoppages in the main card. I think none of the fights on that main card went the distance. So a good show in Liverpool. Fair amount of knockout throughout the entire night. Now let's talk about some MMA. PFL. Usman Nurmagomedov. It is time, I think, for this guy to get going to the UFC because he is incredible. We know he's by far the best guy in the PFL. I know the fights with Paul Hughes were very close. Don't get me wrong, but Usman is a dog, and he's just like the rest of his family and the rest of that camp. He is on their level, and you put a guy in with like Alfie Davis, who's a good fighter, and look, he upset Gadzi Rabadanov, which had similar odds going in. Usman is not Gadzi Rabadanov, and he finishes in with a third-round submission. Beautiful work. Really made it look easy. And we're hearing he has 1 fight left on his deal with the PFL, or if the fight doesn't happen, the contract is up at the end of 2026. So no matter what, next year he will no longer officially be part of the PFL. They will probably try to re-sign him. I think they're going to have to throw a lot of money his way. I don't know if he takes that money because these Dagestani guys, they don't care about the money as much as they do the legacy. We know that he wants to go to the UFC. The big holdup for the longest time was Islam Makhachev was the UFC champion. He didn't want to fight his bro. And now that Islam has moved up to welterweight and the champion is Ilya, there's no reason why Usman should wait to go into the UFC. I think the time is now to join their ranks and try and become a UFC lightweight champion, and he has a very good shot at it. I think he comes in, I would automatically have to think he's like a top 5 guy in the division. I think he deserves a fight at that stature immediately. So, I mean, he stays here. He can fight Archie Colgan. I guess that's who would be next. Paul Hughes, I think the trilogy is there if Usman decides to re-sign, but that needs a little bit more marinating, and they both need to get a couple of other fights in the next few months to a year or two if they were to do a trilogy, but I don't think it'll happen, at least not in the PFL. Maybe one day if they're both in the UFC it can happen, but it does seem like Usman is ready to go and head over to the UFC. Also on the card, co-main event, great performance from Ramazan Kuramagomedov. He wins 48-46 on my card. It was a excuse me. I thought that he looked really good, very dominant for the first 3 rounds. And I thought he was going to get Shamil Musayev out of there just because he seemed like he was breaking him, and Shamil pulls through and has a good performance in the 4th and 5th round. And then he says afterwards, winning the title, that he's going to retire. And look, if you're the PFL, this is rough because this is a vacant title fight. You just had Shamil Musayev, who was a great undefeated fighter, get beaten just for your new champion to retire, and you don't even get to make a star off him. Now, he doesn't say 100% he's retiring. If I'm PFL, I try and make him stay. I try and make him fight Thad Jean or someone like that. Hold on to a little bit, and maybe they can get one more fight out of him. I don't know, but he may just retire, and if so, you have another vacant fight. You can have Shamil fight for it. You can have Thad Jean. I saw somebody say you could do Thad Jean versus Cedric Doumbé in Paris. That would be fantastic. That's honestly probably my favorite pick. Who knows, but it's definitely just a bad look for the PFL and the organization. Not that it's their fault, but to have a new champion and he automatically just leaves the organization, and then you you really hurt the star power of Shamil Musayev as he's now a beatable guy. So very crazy. Otherwise on the card, good event. Lazy King got another win, although it was by split decision, not his best performance. Jesus Pinedo got submitted by Salamat Isubalayev in the first round. That was crazy. Very impressive win for Isubalayev, so he's going to move up those rankings. Puya Rakhmani finishes Carl Williams in just the second round. A good heavyweight prospect the PFL has in their ranks, fighting out of Dubai. Taylor Lapilus had a finish. Nurmagomedov, he had a big PFL debut, a fantastic knockout, just like 37 seconds in. Dude. I mean, it was a really, really solid night of MMA from Dubai, And that wasn't the only MMA card we had this weekend, as of course, UFC was back in the Apex with Mario Bautista finishing Vinicius Oliveira in just 2 rounds. And this was very, very surprising to me. Look, we find out afterwards that Vinicius Oliveira was essentially compromised going into this fight. At least that's what he says. He says he had a fractured arm, that this wasn't his best self, and you can tell. I mean, like he just performed really, really poorly, and it looked like there was a completely difference of levels. Mario Bautista looked like a world class fighter, and Oliveira looked like an amateur. And I mean, yeah, Bautista is really good. And this also reminded me we need to stop doubting this guy. Sure, he couldn't beat Umar, but all the other wins are so solid. The Jose Aldo one, yeah, I don't think that he beat Aldo. But everything else is a really, really solid run. He's won 9 of his last 10 fights. And the UFC obviously believed Oliveira could beat him because they put him into a top 10 fight in the main event of their first fight night on Paramount Plus. Like they had faith in him, and he just kind of performed poorly. And I've seen a lot of people criticize his decision here to fight, because if you're compromised, why are you gonna risk your career and risk continuing when you know that you're not at 100%. And I have to agree, because I don't think that fighters should be fighting if they're not at 100%. And I think he should have told the UFC if he really was not able to fight, because he looked like he hadn't trained much. I don't know. But regardless, great one for Mario Bautista. Does derail the hype train of Vinicius Oliveira. I'm sure he can get back in. But yeah, dude, what a win for Bautista. Back in the top 10. He calls out Corey Sandhagen. I quite like that matchup. I have no objections to it. It'd be a fun striking affair, I guess. I'm sure he would try and wrestle Corey, but yeah, I mean, Corey's a solid fighter. He's not going to get the Sean O'Malley fight. There's a little bit of question of who he could fight next. I think Ayman Zahabi was an option. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen, so I have no objection to Sandhagen versus Bautista next. Co-main event, Kyoji Horiguchi made another case for his title shot. I hope he does get one this year, or at least a big fight next. Kind of dominated Amir Albazi. I gave him every round. One judge had it 29-28. I thought that it was a really, really good showing from Horiguchi. He's just a very high-level fighter, well-rounded. I love his calls on the mic. So yeah, he's now going to take Albazi's number 6 ranking. Apparently, he was also offered the Brandon Moreno fight at the end of the month, but only wanted to take it if he could also fight Albazi. So the guy's just a sicko. Look, we know the UFC is going to go to Japan this year. He needs to be on that card. No matter what, he needs to be on there, whether it's fighting Tatsuro Taira or fighting for the title or whoever. He needs to be involved. Before that, Rizvan Kuniev beats Jalton Almeida. And, dude, first of all, what a terrible fight from both guys. Kuniev does win off mainly fence hugging. He out Almeida, and Jalton Almeida, just what a fall off. This guy was on a huge rise last year. Everyone thinking he was so explosive, and now he's just the most boring guy in the division. He doesn't want to go for it. He's just way too conservative. I don't know what happened. He says he's now going to plan to move back down to light heavyweight. Hopefully, maybe he's just bloated and just doesn't have his. I don't know. Maybe he needs to be more mobile down there. I don't know what he needs, but I think it's more of a mindset thing. But just a really, really poor performance from Almeida, and Kuniev is now going to get a ranking. So fair play to him. Just a real stinker to watch, and a very disappointing fall off for Almeida and the heavyweight division as a whole. Michal Oleksiejczuk takes a unanimous decision win over Marc-Andre Barriault. 29-28 is really the only way to have it. I actually thought Barriault gave a pretty good performance in there. I kind of thought Oleksiejczuk would finish him, and Barriault made it a tough fight. It was a pretty fun one to watch. But, fair play to the Polishman. Farid Basharat gets a win against Gian Matsumoto by split decision. That was a close one and was probably the best fight of the night, or at least up there. So fair play to Basharat. Dustin Jacoby finishes Julius Walker in the second round. I was a little bit surprised by that. He makes a case to fight on the White House card. Everyone wants to. I don't think he will be able to, but you know what? Really, really good win. Before that, Daniil Donchenko. He really impressed me. He won 30-27 for me. I thought that he was super fun to watch. Even two of the judges give it to him 30-26. Very, very exciting fighter. And so I think that he'll be successful in the UFC, and people will really like him. Nikolai Veretennikov, first round finish as well. A lot of decisions before that, but a fun night at the Apex. I like the I like the new the seating in there. It did make it a little bit better. It's still kind of quiet, but it is what it is. It's an improvement. It's getting better. There was a little bit of an atmosphere this time as opposed to none before. And yeah, it was a lot of decisions on the night, but some solid fights. KnuckleMania is what we had. KnuckleMania 6. And look, to be honest, KnuckleMania 6 was a little bit disappointing to me just because it was a lot of decisions. It was very odd how many decisions there were, not a lot of knockouts. And I think that from what it sounded like, Dave Feldman was a little bit disappointed in that. It went long. The event didn't end until almost 1 a.m. Would usually, yeah, this was a longer card in terms of the amount of fights they had for sure. But their card's usually over in like less than 4 hours. This one was almost 6. And again, this is because of how many lack of finishes you have. But look, main event, Andrei Arlovski dominates Ben Rothwell. It was a really fun fight to watch. Just busts him up, cuts him open. Looked like Rothwell was going to go down multiple times. Kept on getting held up by the ropes. And then after the third round, the doctor, calls a doctor, or I think it was during the third round, doctor says, look, dude, you're way too cut up. And I think that was the right decision. He was cut big on the forehead and around the eye. And look, Andrei Arlovski is now the BKFC heavyweight champion. That title keeps on changing hands, but what a win for him. And he's in his mid-40s and just keeps on kicking. They ask him, you want to fight Leonardo Perdomo? He says, yeah, give me give me some time to rest, but sure. And I think Perdomo definitely deserves that title shot. It's been all, these former UFC guys who have had the belt. But Perdomo is one of their biggest stars that they've created, one of the best bare-knuckle fighters they have. And I think he should get a shot at the title. And him and Arlovski is a fantastic fight. Co-main event, Lorenzo Hunt stops Dave Mundell to become the pound-for-pound #1 bare-knuckle fighter. This was 1 versus 2. He obviously had a clear size advantage. Mundell took the fight on short notice, but it doesn't matter. Hunt beat him. He dominated him, and he knocked him out in the 4th round. He gets knockout of the night, I believe. Just really, really impressive. Lorenzo Hunt then makes a case to fight Mike Perry. Mike Perry is the biggest face. He's the face of the company, and Lorenzo Hunt is the pound for pound #1. King of Violence versus pound for pound #1. That fight needs to happen. I love it. I think that Lorenzo Hunt probably beats Mike Perry, but dude, it's a great fight. So I would love if they made that one because he definitely deserves a payday. It just depends on if Mike Perry is up for it. Johnny Cannoli Garbarino beats Kane Tomlinson Jr. in a real hard fight to watch. I think there was 8 knockdowns before it finally got called. Tomlinson was just, in addition to being dropped 8 times, Tomlinson was just always on the ground, falling over, slipping, being pushed, whatever. It was just such a pain to watch. Really pathetic performance. And it was a hard five rounds to get through. I thought Garbarino looked good. He was very measured, not as wild. And he's a real big star they have in Philly. BKFC wants to be very prominent and based out of Philly. They want to do a lot of events there, and he's becoming a big homegrown star for them. The Cannoli gimmick's great, and he can fight. Ben Bonner beat Tony Soto in the rematch. More lopsided this fight than the first one, maybe even. I thought that he looked great, and now he is in position to fight Austin Trapp for the vacant lightweight championship, so that's all good. Patrick Brady beating Bear Hill. Very dominant performance, but Bear Hill never gave up. He kept on getting through somehow, wouldn't give up, and then Brady retires after. So I think he was walked out by Shane Gillis as well. So that was great. Jade Masan Wong dominates Crystal Pittman. She may get a title shot off that. Mike Richmond beats Joe Elmore. That was a good close fight. Charles Felony Bennett knocks out Pat Sullivan in the 2nd round. Pat Sullivan has been knocked out before, but wasn't expecting that in this fight. So really cool win from Bennett. He's a great character. Cody Russell, great 2nd round stoppage himself. Zedekiah Montanez stopping Brandon Mayer in their rematch. I believe Mayer won the first time. This time Montanez is a great knockout. It was just a really fun night. I mean, yeah, it was not a lot of knockouts as we're used to in bare knuckle, but it was still a successful night at the office, and they had like 18,000 people there, over 2 million live viewers. Just a real good night, and I really do love BKFC, and it's honestly, they talk about wanting to be the 2nd biggest promotion in the world. They may already be that. They really may, because I don't know if any of the boxing promotions have the name, notoriety that Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship does. I don't know if as many people you walked on the streets, oh, you know what BKFC is? Oh, yeah. You know what Top Rank is? You know what Matchroom is? I don't know if that many people are going to say, oh, yeah. Just because they view BKFC and UFC as more of the sport than just the organization. Did that make sense? But yeah, Great night. And then they announced like a ton of their upcoming events. They've got a great schedule. So let's just talk about what they announced. March 20th in Hollywood, Florida, BKFC 87. Kai Stewart's going to defend the featherweight title yet again against the undefeated Nico Goffi. That's a good headliner. Excited to see Kai Stewart back because he's one of their best pound-for-pound fighters. April 7th, they announced the start of Bare Knuckle Fight Clubs. This is going to be, every time they do it, it's going to be in Philly. It's going to be a warehouse, much like darker and less big feel. But it's going to be an 8-man tournament. Every fight is just one round, and the winner gets a contract. So, I mean, this is going to be, they're talking about wanting it to be their most viral thing yet. I think you're just going to get real street guys coming in and just throwing hands for one round. It sounds like a recipe for disaster, but I will definitely be watching that. Sounds great. April 11th will be in Hawaii. April 17th, Denver. April 18th, Australia. So back-to-back cards. And April 24th in Clearwater. Excuse me. Don't have announcements on any fights of those cards yet, but yeah, very, very busy April coming up for the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. And then on Friday night, we had Christian Medina dominating Adrian Curiel. I expected him to beat him. I didn't expect him to win every round. I gave him literally every round of the fight, 120 to 108. Some of the cards were way too close. Curiel was tough. He hung in, but Medina just kind of outclassed him. I didn't think any rounds were close to Curiel being able to win them, honestly. He maintains his WBO bantamweight title, his first defense of the crown, he's got a lot of options. We know that Bam is looking at a move to 118. If they can't get the Willibaldo Garcia fight for Bam for undisputed, as that's going to be tough to get with the Andrew Maloney in the way, then yeah, you just do Bam moving up to 118 and challenging Medina as you Matchroom has a hold of the belt there. It's a Mexican fighter. Bam is Mexican American. That's your fight. That's it. If Bam does stay at 115 to get that, then you do Medina trying to get unification with Ricardo Salas, both Mexicans. Great fight that is. That's what I say they should try and do. Regardless, I think the Medina is going to get a big opportunity with Matchroom next, and I think he deserves one. Fights before that on the card are pretty solid. Alberto Mora gets the win over, Alberto Mora does get the win over Jose Amaro. I kind of thought Amaro did enough to get the win. It was close. I had a 95-94 in favor of Amaro. I thought the cards were definitely too wide in favor of Mora, but not surprised overall. And then before that, Abraham Cordero gets the win against Eduardo Martinez. I scored that one a draw. I thought it was close, but not mad at the decision there. Really, really fun fight to watch. That one was. Good match in Mexico show. So that's all the cards that we had this week. Let's talk about some other news before we wrap up. First off, Ryan Garcia has posted that he is enrolled in VADA testing. And this is great. I mean, it looks like the WBC said, yeah, we want to make sure we have VADA testing, knowing Ryan's history, especially with the WBC, as that fight with Devin Haney was meant to be for the 140 title. Here he is fighting Barrios for the 147 title. They mandated both guys enter testing, and Ryan, looks like he's going to be a clean fighter for it, which is good. Golden Boy also announced that both Joshua Edwards and Amari Jones have been added to the undercard, probably as prelims. So cool to see they're going to get some of their prospects active, and those are two of their best fighters. And we know that they don't have a TV deal really right now. So glad that they're going to be able to fight on that ring show. I hope Amari Jones is fighting a decent opponent. We're hearing that Fabio Wardley, Daniel Dubois could very well be next. And at first, this was Derek Chisora saying this. We know that there had been talks of Daniel Dubois versus Zhilei Zhang. Fabio Wardley versus Derek Chisora was mentioned. Tyson Fury was mentioned. But now we're back to Wardley versus Dubois. And dude, this is a phenomenal fight. These two guys may be like the second and third best heavyweights in the world right now. I know that you have Caballel, who was probably above them. And you still have Joseph Parker hanging around. But these are two of the top 5 heavyweights in the world, no doubt. And 2 British fighters and 2 guys who can hit. I mean, my goodness. Just thinking about this fight and the amount of chaos that would ensue and how many someone's going down in the first half of the fight, you have to think. It is a phenomenal matchup. And look, I don't love guys getting world title shots off of losses, but Daniel Dubois lost to Usyk, and he doesn't duck any smoke. And going in with Wardley, where either guy can get knocked out, dude, that is a phenomenal fight. I love it. It makes a ton of sense for Queensberry to make that one. We know that Wardley is not going to get Usyk next. So if he's not getting Usyk, give him Dubois. And, dude, I'm just thinking about him. Like, that is one of the best fights you can make in the heavyweight division right now. I have no issues if they make it. I would love if they made that fight. and I don't even know who I would pick winning in it right now. Speaking of heavyweights, UFC said that they tried to get Rico Verhoeven. They tried to sign him. We knew this, but now just hearing from him. But he chose to go to boxing instead. Look, he's choosing the payday. And Rico is a guy who, I don't watch Glory Kickboxing, but from what I've heard, he can go into boxing or UFC and already be at the top level with how skilled and dangerous he is. So if he I would choose to go to boxing as well if I was him, because it's less dangerous health-wise, and actually, I don't know if that's true, but I think it's true. And you get way more money, especially we know that he was in talks to fight Anthony Joshua on a Riyadh season show. He would make tens of millions there as opposed to like 1 million fighting on UFC. So yeah, I would love to see him in boxing. And after he wins boxing, if he wins boxing or once he tries it out, I'd love to see him go to the UFC because I think that he could really do some stuff there. But we'll see what he ends up doing. Xander Zayas says that he wants Josh Kelly. I love that. Xander Zayas is not wasting any time. He only wants unifications, and that is just so refreshing to see in a young champion. This guy, I think, is going to be very exciting to watch for years to come, just because he's not going to duck anyone. And I'm sure that he would want to fight Boots and Vergil and Fedora, but those guys are not available right now. And saying, all right, give me Josh Kelly. I would love to welcome you over to the United States. Let's do it. It's a fantastic fight, 3-belt unification. I doubt it happens because they both are going to have mandatories they're going to have to do, and I think Josh Kelly's going to want to take a voluntary, but it's a great fight. It really is a great fight. Speaking of Xander Zayas, he and Emiliano Vargas were in the halftime show with Bad Bunny, which I thought was so cool. I didn't even realize watching it live that was them. I guess I missed that part of it, but dude, that is so cool that they got to be on the Super Bowl halftime show. And speaking of the Super Bowl, let's talk about it. I won't talk about it too much because I don't want to get political, but Jake Paul had some comments about the Super Bowl show. We know Jake Paul is very much aligned with a more right-wing ideology, and that's not exactly what that group of people wanted. They didn't want Bad Bunny performing. They didn't want somebody performing in Spanish, in the American Super Bowl and whatever. Anyways, Jake Paul tweeted saying how he's going to purposely turn off the TV during the Super Bowl, and he thinks everybody else should because they shouldn't be supporting a fake American citizen. And I think that he expected everyone to agree with him, and he just got torn apart by everyone saying, look, dude, he's Puerto Rican. He's not a fake American citizen. And I agree with that. I'm like, that is ridiculous for you to say, and including Amanda Serrano turning her back on him, which I loved because here's a guy who lives in Puerto Rico and champions Puerto Rico as part of his business, and then is out here calling a Puerto Rican a fake American citizen. So I loved her standing up saying, look, I am very grateful for everything you've done for me. This is wrong. You cannot say this. And, of course, this morning, MVP releases a statement saying, oh, we stand with Puerto Rico. And Jake Paul releases a statement saying, oh, I don't know what happened last night, huh? Saying, I agree with Jake. I do not think that Jake meant to say, he meant to call Bad Bunny a fake American citizen for his political stances, which you're still wrong. But he's calling him, he didn't mean to call Puerto Ricans fake Americans. But I just think it's funny. It totally backfired on him, and I'm glad that it did because you can't just, say terrible things about it's just whatever. And then also that was funny how Logan Paul says, I love my brother, but I do not agree with him. We're literally an hour, and that may be true, but also an hour before the Super Bowl, they asked him, are you excited for this halftime show? And he said no. And then says afterwards, like, oh, I thought that it was so cool Bad Bunny got to represent all this. And it's like, yeah, dude, you're just trying to save face. But not a great PR move for Jake Paul and MVP. It kind of saved it. I saw that his fiance won gold at the Olympics and he was crying. So that's pretty cool. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about Callum Smith, Dave Morrell. Apparently there is a deal in place. We've heard this. And it doesn't seem like it's fully in place, though. That's what the WBO said. But now Eddie Hearn saying, yeah, we're trying to get that fight April in Liverpool. I think that they have terms agreed, but I don't know if they've agreed on, it doesn't seem like they've agreed on an actual specificity of date, location, what show it'll be on. I think that there's potential it could end up on a Saudi show, but they want to bring the fight back home for Callum Smith in Liverpool, and I think that'd be a great place to do it. It's just such a good fight for the division, and it's been long overdue to happen. Rumors that Rene Santiago is reportedly set for a fight with Masataka Taniguchi to defend his unified 108 titles in Tokyo. Santiago's on a great run, beating 2 champions in a row, and is now going to go and fight Taniguchi, who is a pretty solid fighter. We'll see. He's going into the backyard of Japan yet again. Beat 2 Japanese guys in a row. Let's see if he can do it for a third time. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of Santiago and the run he's on. Matchroom today announced their next show, or one of their next shows, on March 21st. The return of George Liddard, as he is going to defend the British and Commonwealth titles against Tyler Denny. And I think this is a pretty solid step up. I don't know if you consider Denny a step up from Conway. I think so. Denny's a former European champion. He's got some good wins. Obviously, he did get stopped by Hamza Shiraz in 2 rounds, but that's Hamza Shiraz. I think this is a good test for Liddard. I think he beats him, but I think it's a good test. I think it could be a competitive fight. I'm really happy they made that one. It was meant to be March 7th, I believe, was the initial date, but now it's the 21st at the Copperbox Arena. Co-main is going to be Giorgio Vizioli. He's stepping up as well, fighting Levi Giles for the English lightweight championship. I think he beats him, but another solid fight. And then Jimmy Sains is going to fight Derek Osaze. A solid step up yet again. Liddard already fought Osaze, and it was a little bit more competitive than we were expecting. And then Taylor Bevan is on the card. Connor Mitchell making his second fight. Lely Buttigieg and Adam Maka. So a lot of solid, kind of a next-gen show. I don't know if Matchroom really does that, but that's essentially what this is. Although, guys like Liddard and Vizioli are definitely above next-gen level now. So it's cool. Apparently, IBF have ordered Albert Bell and Lucas Body for a lightweight title eliminator. I love it. I don't know if Lucas Body is going to get the shot with the WBA. He could against Schofield, or Schofield fights Roach or somebody else. I don't know. But if he doesn't get it there, he will get it with the IBF, because they are going to make sure that they have an eliminator in place. And the winner of that is going to fight Raymond Murataya. If I'm Body, I would probably just see if I can fight Schofield for the WBA to ensure that you get a title shot. I don't think Body beats Schofield, but I also don't know if he beats Albert Bell. Then again, there is rumor is that MVP has signed Albert Bell. So that's an in-house fight for them to make and have it headline one of their cards, a title eliminator, and then one of your guys is guaranteed a title shot against Raymond Murataya, of which MVP could really use the guy fighting for a world title, because they don't have that. They don't have any male world champions. I don't think either of those guys beat Murataya, but again, it's a shot. And so we'll see what happens there, but that's a solid fight if it does get made. And then lastly, this is not news, but this is the end of the episode. Tomorrow night, we have a card in Michigan. Salida Promotions' first event of the year is headlined by the return of one Joshua Pagan, as he's going to take on Brian Jimenez, who is 18-2 with 10 knockouts. Pagan has gotten much better in the past year. He had a great win last time against Malik Montgomery, stopping him at the end of the fight. I think that he looks pretty good here. I don't know much about Jimenez. I don't know if Pagan stops him. He doesn't have very knockouts on his record, but I'm expecting another good, solid, dominant win. He was apparently meant to fight Jamel Herring on this night, which I think would have been a really good step up, and we probably would have beaten him too. But he fights Jimenez nonetheless. I think he gets the win. Co-main event is going to be Caroline Veer versus Delphine Persoon. That is for a vacant world championship, I believe at 130. Is that right? Yeah, because this is the belt that Baumgartner vacated to have the 12 3-minute round fight. Yeah. I think that's a solid matchup. I think that Caroline Veer is good. But Delphine Persoon, don't count her out. She still got it. I mean, she was competitive with a lot of people recently. So I'm going to pick Veer in that fight, but I would not be surprised at all if Persoon pulls off an upset. Look, it's a solid card. Good main and co-main event. That's going to be tomorrow night. Rare Tuesday night boxing. Don't get that much, but we won't complain because there's not a lot of boxing this week. You get Zuffa 3 on Sunday. That's pretty much it. But yeah, that's all I've got for today. Thank y'all so much for listening. Enjoy the week, and peace out.